Question one, when should I start thinking about careers and post-16 options? Okay, so if your child has an EHCP, so an educational health and care plan, which is something that not everybody will have, don't even get me started on that one. You should be asked about this in the year 9 review. So if your child is in year 9 or about 14 years old, you should, with your Senko and with anybody else, start to talk about careers and post-16 in year 9. All right. Now, I do have a slide that will take us through a little bit more information. My top tip is to start thinking as early as possible. Now, as a careers advisor and as somebody who's part of the careers enterprise team in the West of England here, I know that schools and careers teams are being asked to start talking about careers as young as 8 years old. That seems like a really early time, right? And when we're families with neurodivergent children, quite frankly, we can't even possibly begin to think of that because we're still struggling to get our kids into school or to get people to in education to support them with unmet needs, or even trying to work out what their needs are. So as early as possible, it can vary from different people. But I would absolutely say that if you haven't started talking about careers in some way by year 9, then actually that's when you need to start talking about it. And you don't need to be saying, well, you're going to have to get a job and we have to do this, that, and the other. It's not like that. And in this session, one of the questions that I will answer is, how do we start talking about that? So year 9 is when we can start talking about careers and planning for post-16 in an EHCP. If you don't have an EHCP, you will probably have found that if your child is in mainstream, they will have started talking about careers, maybe in subtle ways that you don't realize they're talking about careers, well before year 9, all right? But certainly in year 9 and then in year 10, they'll be doing things like mock interviews or writing CVs and all of those kind of things. But if you are home educating, or if you are if you're in alternative provision, one of my children, my 18-year-old, she was educated online from the age of 12. And quite frankly, she didn't get any careers education at all. They tried and they said they would, but she didn't get anything. She really was like, it got to 16, she took her GCSEs and she went in to do A-levels online still and did everything online. But careers education, it came from me. It came from us as a family. And I'll talk about some of those things in throughout this. And that can be really hard. But sometimes as a parent, we have to take a bit of control. We can't help it sometimes. And also, we might not always have all the information. So hopefully, again, taking you through this session, we will pick up on some of those places where you can get that information and start talking about it. So I would start talking about strengths and what they want to do and what they're interested in as early as possible. And they could be a career. Think about the challenges. All right. So as a neurodivergent, an autistic ADHDer, or as somebody who's dyspraxic or somebody with cerebral palsy, there will be challenges. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, hey, they can do anything. It's fine. They can take over the world, because I might mention a certain person who is autistic and in America. However, we can't all be like that. And there will be challenges. There will be challenges that will hinder or might make progress slower and make things longer than they would be for peers who are not disabled or not neurodivergent or not sent. But there is still plenty of time to mature, to grow and develop. So even from year 9, we're not going to be getting all those answers. But remember, being a teenager, oh my God, the development that happens throughout those years is remarkable. In fact, I was at a group a couple of weeks ago, and a young person said to me, they were 16, and they said something along the lines of, I never thought I'd be doing this now. I seem to have matured and evolved, and I'm 16 and I feel like I can talk to people. But if you'd have asked me last year, I wouldn't have talked to anybody. And that is that is something to hold on to, that when you're a parent, and my children, so one of mine was selective mute up until probably about 15 years old, and they still are now. They still are. So things happen, and sometimes they will go into can't talk mode. But we never thought that they would be able to get out and engage and work and do those things because they didn't talk, and they found it very, very difficult. But their teenage years, they matured incredibly in the space of about 2 or 3 years. And so don't underestimate how much things can change during those teenage years. But everybody is on their own journey. Okay. You're not going to be on the same journey as me. You're not going to reach the same places as me. You're not even starting from the same places as me. But back to the first point, start talking about careers as early as possible. Some of the things you might start thinking about and talking about with yourself, with your partner, with the people in your network. I kind of talk about a support bubble quite often. So other people like teachers, careers teams, Senkos, mentors. Who can you talk to? What information is available, and where can you get that information? A lot of it will be in your local authority, and there will be a preparing for adulthood team. Again, I'll give you some information about that later on. So what information's available? What can you do? What do they want to do? Because, hey, right, I'm in my 50s now. I know. You don't have to say anything. But if you'd have asked me what I wanted to do way back when I was a teenager at 14, I still didn't really have a great idea. I didn't really have a clue. Or if I did, I think at one point I wanted to be a linguist in the RAF, but that went out of the window. And my career has been very, very different. But if I'd have spent my career perhaps doing things that I want to do, I may have had a bit more of a happier time in some jobs sometimes. But hey, we don't always get that choice. However, if you have a young person and they're really talented or want to do something, they're going to be motivated to do it. And so it's very, very helpful to think about what they want to do. You want careers advice that is relevant, because careers advice where they're saying, oh, just write your CV, but actually you're dyslexic, so writing that CV is really difficult. Or careers advice like, well, you just go for your interview, your mock interview, and you do this, and there's no reasonable adjustments in place. There's no consideration that actually you might need the questions in advance and those kind of things, and that is okay to ask for that. The careers advice that you needs to talk about things like reasonable adjustments and support that will go in place. And what are their strengths? What are they brilliant at? Are they a great artist? Are they a great musician? Are they great at coding? Do they realize that these are their strengths and things that can work for them? And who can help? Is there anybody in your network, your bubble that I've talked about, who can help you? Who can you go to ask for support? Where do you get that stuff? And then what post-16 options are there? And in a few minutes, we'll go through some of those. So bear in mind, I've got 10 questions. What are their challenges? As I mentioned earlier, let's not sugarcoat this. We don't ignore and we don't avoid what challenges there might be out there. However, we do need to reflect, and we need to think about how we can tackle, and we can support ourselves as well as have other people support us in those challenges and those things that might need reasonable adjustments in the workplace. Whoa, that was question number 1.